Hi, I'm Glenn Whipp with the Los Angeles Times. The BET miniseries, The Book of Negroes, premiered to great acclaim in February. It tells the story of a young woman living in Africa. She's a girl, she's kidnapped, brought to the United States. Time of the American Revolution, goes into slavery. It's about her journey back into freedom, back to Africa. It's an incredible miniseries, 6 parts. Joining us today, Louis Gossett Jr.
Hi, how are you?
Who, welcome.
Thank you. It's good.
Thank you.
Los Angeles Times. This is a nice place to be.
Thank you.
Yes.
So in this miniseries, you play
Daddy Moses.
Daddy Moses. You know, before I sat down and watched this, I read an interview with you where you were saying, this is better than Roots. I'm going, wow, that is a high praise. Why do you say that?
Well, the Roots, of course, was a surprise and very timely before its time. Mark Wolper's doing it again because his children don't understand. But this one is, Roots was about the slavery and the growth of this one person and Alex Haley, which is very good for its time. This one is the story of a woman. It's not so much about slavery. It's a triumphant story, and she tells it. That's her voice, all the way through the 6 hours about her life. So it's got that background of her traveling and of being enslaved, but it's really this triumphant story of this woman.
Right.
You know, so it's timely on so many levels. So it exposes a story that a lot of us don't know about how Nova Scotia got started. A lot of things that the Book of Negroes, which was invented by the British, because they thought that they were going to beat the Americans during the Revolutionary War. And they had a list of Negroes. It's called the Book of Negroes, which is now in Washington, D.C., so that when they won, they would reward these former slaves. And it was the other way around. It's very ironic that the British slaves fought the American slaves. And
right.
so Washington had slaves, and they were fighting over independence. A very ironic kind of dichotomy about society. But the thing I remember most about that experience, we started in Cape Town, South Africa. And I looked around, and I've been to South Africa some 6 times before that. I had met Mandela, fortunately, and I knew all of those particular people, Oliver Tambo and his son, Dolly Tambo, and it was very magnetic people. And they had just finished this holocaust of anger and resentment, and they were getting ready to celebrate Mandela coming out. So I got to see that background. And here's this crew. The crew was white, colored, Asian, Indian, black, combination, working so hard on this one particular project. We moved on to Nova Scotia, and it was Canadians, English, Americans, of all colors, of all religions, working like a unit to put this piece of art together. And on my last day of shooting, I said, you guys don't know what you're doing, do you? They looked at me, because they were all friends and stuff. And I said, here's what you got here. You got white South Africans, black South Africans, Indians, coloreds, Caribbeans, English, Americans, Canadians, all working as a unit to put this piece of work, this beautiful thing together. I wish it was effective and get around the world. And some of them applauded, some of them went to tears, and now there's some friends. But it was that unanimous, which is something that's a positive experience to hope that maybe mankind can do that eventually.
So you started in Cape Town then?
In Cape Town, yeah. So
you must have started, it's a 6-part miniseries, and your character appears first in episode 5. And then briefly in episode 6.
Yeah.
So you started with, what's that?
I had to speak fast.
Yeah. You, so you started with I mean, you know, I definitely recommend people to watch this. I'm assuming a lot of people viewing this have seen it.
Yes.
But yeah, so you must have started with your death then, right? Your characters.
That's true. I had to go backwards.
Yeah.
My first scene was my death. And then I had to film backwards, and I had to pre-prepare what the death scene was as a result of not having done the others on the film, and then make sure it matches from back to front, which is unusual, but it had to do with their location. But the magic of Cape Town, that place where the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean meet, with its 40-degree difference. I have photographs of the steam and the foam when it makes that transition. Then you understand what the famous Cape of Good Hope is. But it's all, when you do something and you get a feeling, maybe in journalism too, You know everything is right. The timing, Roots was like that. The timing of doing that movie and that story with that lady and all those particular people was so right. It fit like a glove. It was hard work, but it didn't matter.
Hmm.
It's better than working.
How long had they been shooting before you came to
Oh,
the?
they had been shooting quite a while.
Mhm.
So they had something together.
So you were entering kind of like a well-oiled
A
production.
well-oiled production, and,
Yeah.
and we took care of that. The director, it was his career. He was making it. They paid attention to detail, and once I got it, I started fitting in a little bit because I got a little upset. That was perfect. You want to do that again? She said yes, because there was 2 steps to the left that I didn't like.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, whatever it was. So you get to fit into what everybody cooperated with that director, and you can see the results.
He had a very precise vision.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Your character is based on a real person.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's based on Moses Wilkinson, who is a Methodist minister.
Who started the church in Nova Scotia.
Right. Did you know anything about him before?
I had read a little bit about him.
Yeah.
And I had some friends from that society in Nova Scotia. And they're still friends of mine. And they took me on a tour. And there are 2 factions, 2 religious black factions there that try and find out who's going to be in control of the people. But they're both going in the right direction and worshiping. But they never thought that there would ever be any kind of movie or any kind of miniseries or anything about their life. So they cooperated 100%. The only thing about Nova Scotia, it's got a little bit too much oxygen.
How so?
I come from Los Angeles. I'm not used to that much oxygen.
Just a little too clean. A little too, yeah.
Goodness. You reach, you get a fresh fish, and oysters and lobsters are like hamburgers. It's just what a life.
When were you filming in Nova Scotia?
Oh, I can't remember now.
Was it winter though?
It was at the end of winter, so
Okay.
it wasn't too cold.
I wasn't sure. I mean, at the scenes in Nova Scotia, you see like a little bit of snow in there.
Well, they did a good job, special effects.
Right. That's what I wondered if it was added or.
Oysters and lobster almost daily.
Well,
I mean,
so craft services table, very good.
No, that's where the lobsters come from. You know, it's amazing.
So not a bad. I mean, not a bad shoot in terms of them taking care of you.
Pretty
in
pleasant. Yeah,
locations.
pretty pleasant. Very nice. We were taken very good care of. Everybody cooperated, and that's, of course, it's nice to go to some place where that's where the history was. So you didn't have to build a set. There it was.
Really.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of those buildings,
a lot of
things were still around.
those boathouses and old buildings, they don't tear down. They just freshen them up, but it looks like it used to look.
Well, that's the remarkable thing about this miniseries is that
it all fits.
Yeah, and I learned a lot from it. I mean, there's just these corners of history that are still so ripe for discovery.
Now, can you imagine? That's just a little sliver of our history that people don't know. There's so much more to tell. And in all these years of traveling from different societies and different worlds and connecting dots, like an amateur, but an elder, there's such a plethora of stories. I mean, between Roots and the Book of Negroes, there's this incredible tapestry of the Harlem Renaissance, the Renaissance period, with all the mayors and the governors and the gangsters and the movie stars and the nightclubs and the whole thing is just, nobody knows about it yet. A little bit from the Cotton Club, a little bit from there, but that's tapestries. So now maybe, thanks to BET and the people who put the money together, they see now it's something that people want to see, that perhaps we should continue this legacy.
Right.
And start with the really vital and entertaining period that Harlem and its society hosted. There was, the Lucky Lucianos and then there's FDR, who was a governor, and Fiorella LaGuardia, and all of those particular people, and the Easter Parade, and the Lena Horne and Camp Calloway and the Cotton Club and Apollo, and the wars and the whole thing. It's just amazing. It's like it's
still much to be.
Oh, there's so much to tell.
Yeah,
so much to tell.
I just love how in this miniseries, I'm waiting. I'm watching episode 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm waiting for Lou to come in.
Yeah.
Episode 5, I think, in that first 15 minutes, you deliver a sermon, you deliver a baby, sing a little gospel
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it was a long wait, but you made quite an entrance.
I have a feeling I was an afterthought. But I'm a very pleasant and fortunate afterthought to join this wonderful family.
Well, you had to wait until the action got to Nova Scotia.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of meat in that episode 5 for you.
Yeah, the introduction when I'm in the wagon, a good
Yeah.
man's pulling the wagon. What a great introduction, singing and stuff. I had a good time, a very good time.
Have you ever been pulled around in a wagon in your career?
Not since I was 3. I had a dog that used to do it.
So yeah, that looked, I mean, your character, he's blind.
He's partially blind.
Partially blind, yeah.
Mhm.
I guess I mean, did that, well, I'm trying to think of the time frame from Nova Scotia to them traveling.
Well, there's stuff that
Sierra
happens when
Leone.
people have defects back
Yeah.
in those days. They try and they have to survive. So they can't let anybody know
Mm,
how much defect they have. So he acted as if he could see. He learned that art of, but so that when Aminata asked him, "Are you really blind?" I said, "Well, I can see a little bit out there." You know,
right.
it's he's surviving. You know, he's
Right.
surviving.
What did you like most about, I mean, did you have a favorite scene in
Yeah.
episode 5?
My favorite scene was the childbirth scene.
Mm.
It was almost like an improvisation with that wonderful actress, Anjanou. She's going to be #1 in the world. She's so ready, and she's so good that it was just a pleasure, just a great pleasure.
The childbirth scene.
The
And
childbirth scene and all the stuff we do.
right. Well, I
It's
mean,
my second movie I've done with her.
really?
I
What
did
was
a
the
thing
other
called Cover,
Okay.
and I played a homicide detective, and her husband died, and we've accused her of doing it, but she's innocent at the end, and we had a very good time then. She's remarkable lady.
Did that familiarity, because you two have some very intimate scenes together. I'm thinking the childbirth scene, but then, I mean, shortly afterward, I think maybe 10 minutes afterward in that episode, the child dies. And
So we had to have
and you
some
have to
kind of
tell her that. And
Yeah.
it's just the two of you in that cabin.
yeah,
And it's very,
very touching. It was an open, creative experience.
Yeah.
It was really very pure.
and
Very
did that prior working together, I imagine, really helped you?
Probably, and
in terms
off
of-
the screen and having similar ideas about life and stuff. And I like her. She's the top of the line. She's a good friend.
Mm.
Yeah, she's
Did and we started by mentioning, kind of going back to roots, and you were saying that you thought this was at least part of the
yeah.
continuum of that, and very striking in its own way. Of course, roots is roots.
Yeah, Roots is Roots.
And
I didn't
and
want
there's-
Mark to redo it again, but his children didn't understand, so he's doing
Yeah.
it. That's okay.
I understand that when you were cast in Roots, cast as Fiddler, that you initially weren't too happy about that.
I said, "Why you wait all this time? You got James Earl Jones, even O.J. Simpson. You got everybody in there, and you got me playing the Uncle Tom." All right, so I'm part of the thing. So I started doing research, and I realized there really is no such thing as an Uncle Tom. I mean, anyway, you would say maybe Uncle Tom might have been Step and Fetch It, and when he passed away, he was quite wealthy and quite clever. If there wasn't those particular kinds of characters, like my grandfather was very much like that, and my grandmother, my great grandmother, and I was raised by them, they survived so that we could have a better day. So that's a lesson that some of these young people are forgetting, upon whose shoulders they stand. So Fiddler, first African American that Kunta Kinte meets, becomes more and more important. There's a father and son love there. And he says, you have to be careful. You're not in Africa now. We want you to live. So you have to be careful. And don't you mess with me, because I get to sleep on mattresses and you sleep, but he taught him. And if it had not been for Fiddler, then Kunta Kinte would not have flourished.
Yeah, and you have that. I was reading. I mean, there's that incredible line. I remember. I haven't seen Roots since it was aired, but it's funny how much I still remember from watching it as a young man. That line where you say, "Kunta Kinte, that's who you'll always be. It's going to be a better day." I understand that line wasn't even in
No, it wasn't in the script. Alex Haley used to speak about that moment. One of my best friends back at that time was Vic Morrow. I remember him from Combat, and we both come out of New York, and we used to play ball together. So now he's playing this villain, if you want to call it that. He wants Kunta Kinte to say his new name, Toby. He's got a man with a whip. And before he did the scene, Vic came up to me and said, "Hey, Louis, I'm going to apologize in advance." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, I'm going to have to do this part, and I have to do it properly." So I said, "Okay, So we're coming out of the actor's studio, so he's going to do it. I'm going to watch him." And he was so good that he took me out of my acting thing. And I was just looking at this guy. I didn't see Vic there. I saw this overseer, and he got whipped. I didn't know it's a velvet. So LeVar's not being hurt, but the acting was so vivid. And I'm standing there, and I transformed. I said, "This man is hitting LeVar Burton. He's hitting Kunta Kinte. This is the way it used to happen." And it kind of got me. So the line is, "What you care what that white man call you, Toby, Kunta Kinte? That's your name. That's who you'll always be." And that's the end of the scene. Then all of a sudden I looked at Vic, and I looked at him, and I said, "This is going to be another day. You hear me? There's going to be a better day." And then they cut. And Al Kelly talked about that. That I don't know where it came from. But actors, artists look for those kind of magic moments, like the childbirth scene. It's one of those. When he said, "What's the name?" And he said, whatever the name is. I forgot the name of the baby. And
It was named after the father.
yeah, and so he was kind of half drunk, and he tipped his glass to it. We look for those moments. We look. There's moments like that in Enemy Mine. So I always thank God that for the ability to create and touch an audience. It's what would you call it?
Well, where you're so just into that moment.
Yeah, I've seen Stevie Wonder do music like that and performances like that. I've seen I saw LeBron James play basketball the other night.
Transcendent.
He was in that mode, and it's a privilege to have had at least one of those moments in your life where there's no work. It just happens,
and you can't expect it.
It's just it's like an out of body experience.
You saw LeBron James.
He was out of his body last night.
Yeah.
He put on that sweatband, and he said, "Look, I'm LeBron James. Try and stop me," and nobody could. The best.
I was watching the Clippers lose, so I didn't catch the.
Don't worry about those guys. They're going to win the next game.
Are you a basketball fan?
Oh yeah.
So you switch over to the.
I had to make a decision in 1959 where I wasn't really the best, but I was drafted to the Knicks in 1959.
Oh, were you?
And I went to Catskills, Grossinger's, with all the other guys. And at the same time, I had gotten a part in A Raisin in the Sun. And I had rehearsed for them for about a week. Met Lorraine Hansberry. And I had $750 in my pocket. So here I'm in Grossinger's and Catskills. And they're fighting tooth and nail for jobs on the Knicks. And I realized that I had more money in my pocket than they had in the bank. And the top salary of NBA was Bob Cousy, $127,000 a year. I said, wait a minute. And then he started fighting. I said, no, I think maybe I have to concentrate on either all of this or all of what God has given me as a gift. So I went to Raisin in the Sun, and the rest is history.
Oh, you wouldn't be playing basketball at 78 right now.
Oh, well, no, easy for you to say. No, of course.
I mean, you went with the career that had.
When you're a former jock, you're an all-star in your mind.
Yeah.
Watching, I could have done that.
You can still play. I mean, do you?
I play a little with my son and my grandson.
Yeah,
it's been a while, but I can still hit a three-pointer. That's it.
But you're not getting. You wouldn't be getting paid to.
No.
But I mean, we were talking before the cameras went up here. I mean, you. Where did you just get back from? You had a weekend. Jamaica.
Yeah.
Doing a
thing with Nick Cannon and playing elder, and I always thought about Usain Bolt, that Olympic star.
Yeah.
And these scientists said he's got to be on steroids. Nobody runs that fast. So they looked at his blood, and what they found was mango, codfish, plantain, jerk chicken. And then, so he said, so let him go. Now he's twice as fast.
Mm.
But there's something about nature that is priceless. It's good to make a lot of money and be a movie star, but the stuff that's priceless is even more important.
Sure, sure.
So that experience was wonderful with Nick, but I was in Jamaica.
Right.
Outstanding place.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was just kind of going, you know, in your career, the career that you ended up going with,
Yeah,
takes you to Jamaica,
to South Africa.
Takes you to South Africa. You're directing play, neighborhood, Malibu
almost
Playhouse.
everywhere,
And I mean, yeah, you have been almost everywhere.
I've been to Rio, and I've been to, of course, I have Bahamian traits, and I've been to Rio and Italy, Positano, Morocco, Israel, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, Haifa, London. I used to live there, Paris. So, as a basketball player, I'm not sure whether I would have made that, but
yeah.
To work with some of these outstanding people, these directors and these actors and actresses, and it still continues. So I'm very, knock wood, you know, I'm very, very grateful.
It's a good career to have for your passport.
Much better than working.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for stopping by the Times today.
Yeah,
really
great
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Great pleasure.
Congratulations on the miniseries. It's
Thank you very much. More to come.
Thank you. And for more Emmy conversations, please go to latimes.com. Thank you very much.